Elkins. Welcome to a conversation about holy and human stuff. If you are one who are attracted to stuff, which obviously I am, there comes a time where you discover that you are picking up what looks like perfect trash, or at least that which others are stepping over, paying no attention. This particular object I want to share with you today came from the streets in Seoul, where I was walking back from the church, Cheongdong Church, which was built by one of the early Drew students, Henry Appenzeller. He helped found that church, build that church. He helped establish one of the first boys' schools, and that entire street in Seoul was filled with his handwork and memory, even this many years later. So I was walking the street, and as I walked that street down from Cheongdong Church, I stepped over a piece of broken mortar. And the next day I did the same. And the third day I couldn't resist. I picked it up and turned it over and asked myself, what was it? Well, it's clearly a piece of a roof tile. These were tiles that were used in Korean roofing for many, many years. And it was fallen. It was on the street. It was this way. And so I picked it up and took a look at it and thought, that's worth something. That meant something. And when I think about what roofs do in terms of shelter us from storms, and the fact that this was quite old, and perhaps it might have been there when Henry Appenzeller walked that street, I decided that I would pack it, save it, and bring it home. And I displayed it, not knowing what it meant, until a Korean student came and looked at it carefully and told me that I had it upside down, that in fact it should be hung this way. And when I asked what it meant, this roof tile that was on the street in Seoul, down the street from the Cheongdong Church, he said, let me draw you a picture. And so I want to share what it was that fell from the sky, from the roof. There are two characters here. This one, Pyong. And he said that meant equality in human relations, scale, balance. So that was what one wished to express when you put this up on the roof. Equality in human relations. And this figure, he said, that is a figure hua. It means grains in people's mouths. Grains in people's mouths. So if you put those two things together, the symbol for grain and the symbol for mouth, and the hope for equality in human relations, that is an expression of peace. In these days when every piece of news from North and South Korea seems to be bad news, seems to be the terrible story of the first two brothers fighting, and the terrible saga of a civil war that continues to divide what was once one people. I take this as a sign of hope. I take this as a sign of what gives us shelter when it is both over our heads as a roof tile and in our hearts. Grains in people's mouths, equality in human relations. And when you put those together, and you are a liturgical studies believer and practicer and called to the work of the table, when you put those two signs together, it of course is a sign of Eucharist, Christ table. And that is what we find shelter in this time of civil war.